Frontline is made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Marquise has been stealing since he was 12. Jose took part in a deadly brawl. Manny and a gang brutally attacked a family. Sean stabbed his father. They were all under 18, but should they be tried as adults?
What do you want to tell me about why?
Tonight, Frontline correspondent Michelle Martin investigates the new face of juvenile justice.
There are times when it seems as if everyone in America is having the same bad dream. Frightened by our own kids, by images of a few of our young committing acts so violent, so cruel, so unchildlike, it defies understanding. Across the country, communities are saying that they have had enough. They are demanding that violent kids, repeat offenders, be prosecuted as adults.
He is a 17-year-old charged with attempted murder. You've got multiple victims.
Unlike the adult system, the juvenile courts are normally closed to the public. But in the wake of increased attention to young offenders, the judges of Santa Clara County, California, granted Frontline a sweeping court order, allowing us complete access to their courts, juvenile facilities, probation officers, and counselors. This is a rare look inside the world of juvenile justice at the most serious offenders. For more than a year, we watched the fates of 4 young men. We watched as the juvenile justice system tried to sort the salvageable from the lost. This is 17-year-old Sean from the affluent community of Los Altos. He is charged with attempted murder. The victim is his father.
Your Honor, as you know, I am Charles, and Sean is my son. We are here today because Sean seriously injured me during an early morning hours event on December 26, 1998. It was pretty tough. My wife and I were shocked and devastated. Neither of us understood why our son had tried to harm me. There had never
It
been
happened
any
on Christmas night.
between us.
I awoke to screaming, "Oh my God, please help me, oh my God, please help me." That's all I ever heard.
I had no idea what was going on. It was absolutely pitch dark. I had no idea who was attacking me. I knew I was being attacked. I told Barbara to get out of the room and call 911. And once the person was on top of me, I was able to feel their face, and I realized it was my son.
That must have been an awful feeling.
I wasn't thinking about awful at that point. I was thinking about survival.
Sean was stabbing his father repeatedly in the arms, neck, and head.
It was really a vicious attack. He almost put out an eye, stabbing him in the head. Tendons in the father's hand were severed. The doctors had told him that the throat wound had come within millimeters of severing his carotid artery, which would have killed him. He would have bled out long before he got medical attention. And the attack went on.
I was able to roll him off the bed and to pin him until he stopped struggling. And then for the first time he spoke, and he just said, "I'll stop, just get off me." And He got up and he started to walk out, and I came right behind him. And he headed right into the kitchen and grabbed a knife and tried to slit his throat.
Police and medical help arrived. Sean went to the hospital in one ambulance, his father in another.
When I finally saw Sean, he was sitting in a chair in a fetal position, just sobbing. And I just hugged him. And I said, Sean, my God, what happened? And he said, Mom, I don't know. The police keep saying I did this, but I don't remember anything.
When did you realize what you had done?
When I was sitting in the hospital room, cop came in and he's like, "Okay, I want to interview. I'm going to take you down to the station." I said, "Want to interview? What for? What?" He said, "Well, don't play dumb. I'm saying you're just going to make things harder for yourself." I said, "Well," I'm saying, "Well, I really don't know what you're talking about." They said, "You're gonna get charged with attempted murder, and if you die, you're gonna get charged with first-degree murder."
And what was going through your mind?
I thought I was dreaming. I thought, you know what I'm saying, I didn't think it was reality. I thought it was just another messed up dream that you get when you smoke too much weed.
Sean had smoked marijuana the night of the attack. In fact, Sean had been using drugs for months.
You have to look at every case individually because there's a lot of things that are going on with that kid that you don't know about until you find out.
When he investigated, Sean's probation officer found that the house behind the white picket fence contained a family unraveling because of drug use. Sean was asked to leave school for the second time because of drugs. And he wasn't the only one with a substance abuse problem. His mother had a drinking problem. When Sean's father left town, which he did often for business, his family spun out of control.
His dad would leave town and he would tell Sean not to let his mom drink while he's gone. Well, Sean would bring his friends to the house, they would party there, and his mom would know they were smoking marijuana. But then Sean would tell his mom, "If you tell on me, I'm telling on you," because he knew his mom was drinking.
Sean had one earlier brush with the law. Along with another boy, he had taken money from a younger kid. Sean was charged in juvenile court with strong-arm robbery.
You are not guilty of attempted murder. Whether or not you want to run the risks and the gauntlet that you're going to have to go down to prove that is completely up to you.
Now Sean is facing the possibility of being tried in adult court. If convicted of attempted murder there, he faces a mandatory sentence of 15 years to life. Sean's parents believe Sean did not intend to hurt his father, and they hope they could persuade a jury of that. But the possibility of such a stiff sentence is terrifying. When prosecutors offer a deal under which Sean will plead guilty but remain in juvenile court, they consider it carefully.
The priority was to keep this in juvenile court. At all costs, we wanted to stay there. And therefore, we had no choice. We either were going to ensure that it would stay there. The safest thing to do would be to plead guilty to the charge and then to look at the circumstances of the crime during the decision on how Sean should be treated.
Sean decides to take the deal.
The issue before this court really is, where do we go from here? What do we do? That's the real issue. I felt very strongly that this was a young man that had some redeeming value and that we could actually put together a rehabilitative plan for him that could be successful. The prosecutor felt very adamantly the other way, that he was had some serious problems, was a threat to society, and needed to be locked up for a very long period of time.
The case is being heard by Judge Thomas Edwards for disposition, the juvenile court term for sentencing. In an effort to understand Sean's behavior, the judge orders an independent psychological evaluation. And the psychologist comes back with an intriguing report. He says the attack seemed to be the outcome of an altered state of consciousness coming from disturbance of sleep. So Sean's public defender prepares a new argument in his defense. Sean was sleepwalking when he attacked his father. Sean is sent to a prominent sleep clinic at Stanford for a full evaluation by Dr. Rafael Palaio.
We can't be sure what really happened that night. but sleepwalking could have definitely explained the acts of that night.
Why does sleepwalking seem like the most credible explanation to you?
Well, these type of behaviors, as a lump sum, they're all called parasomnias, usually occur mostly out of slow wave sleep, or deepest type of sleep. Sean had been sleep deprived. He'd been staying up late, which increases slow wave sleep. He smoked marijuana that evening. That also is reported to increase slow wave sleep. And then finally, he has no real memory of this happening. When I spoke to him, he seemed to not have he didn't have any real memories of it, and he seemed remorseful about all this.
There is no doubt in your mind that he was sleepwalking.
I have no proof, 100% proof. But I've looked into my son's eyes and on many occasions and talked about this with him, and I believe that he is telling me the truth.
But in court, the prosecutor presents his own sleepwalking expert, Dr. David Clayman.
In your opinion, is it medically probable that Sean was acting without consciousness of his acts due to sleepwalking at the time of the assault on his father?
No, it doesn't appear medically probable to me. The most common situation to see violence in sleepwalking situations is when there's an attempt made to restrain the person who is doing the sleepwalking. So clearly here, based on the description of events, there was no attempt at restraint as his father was lying in bed sleeping.
Although Sean has remained in the juvenile system, the stakes are still high. The defense wants Sean to receive psychological and drug counseling in a local facility. The prosecution wants him sent to California's toughest facility for juveniles, the California Youth Authority.
It's our assertion that a youth authority commitment would be detrimental to Sean and to his family. This is a situation, the underlying conflicts that are in this family need to be resolved by this family. Family counseling is virtually unheard of at California Youth Authority. That doesn't happen. And this is definitely a family problem. This was a time in their lives when things started to spin out of control all the way around. They spun out of control for Mom, they spun out of control for Sean. Mom has a problem with alcohol. I'm happy to say that Mom has consciously chosen to deal with that since she has come into the system. But that was a big issue for this family. This young man will not be a future behavior problem. When he's clean and sober, he's not a violent person.
There are many warm words spoken, but this is not a sleepwalking case, and I don't buy into the sleepwalking theory for 1 minute. This is an extremely grave offense when someone tries to kill someone. The Youth Authority really is the only alternative that's available for this severe criminality. Submitted.
Sean's case is so unusual and the testimony so in conflict that Judge Edwards postpones his decision with a request for more information. He sends Sean back to Juvenile Hall to wait.
There have been young people making bad decisions for a long time. God knew that you guys were going to make bad decisions, and that's why he gave you some instructions.
Jose is Sean's roommate in maximum security.
How many of you guys realize you're on the wrong road now?
Jose was only 15 when he was arrested. The charge was murder.
That's one thing that comes to mind when I think of this scene is the smell of blood, because it was all over.
In the fall of 1998, Jose was involved in a brutal fight. Jose, a gang member, was hanging out in an alley with 4 other kids. 2 were recent immigrants from Mexico. Everybody had been drinking for hours.
The fight starts, and then it just becomes like a frenzy.
The 2 immigrants suddenly became the target. Soon, 16-year-old Ugolino was on the ground.
Several of them take turns hitting him with a branch that had been sawed off one of the nearby trees, breaking the skull and casting off some of the pieces of skull onto a nearby fence.
They didn't stop. They didn't stop. They continued. After they knew that he was offering no resistance and that he was down defenseless. This was probably one of the worst beatings I had ever seen.
In the end, Ugolino lay dying in the alley. The other terrified young immigrant escaped by scaling a fence, breaking his ankle in the process. As the commotion reached the neighbors, Jose and the others fled.
Nobody deserves to get what he did. When you see that it's so easy for somebody to just be gone, and you think, you're involved with the gangs and everything, it could be like, it's very easy for it to happen to anybody,
Like Sean, Jose also faced the possibility of being tried as an adult. If convicted of murder, he could have received a sentence of 25 years to life in prison. But the police reports revealed mitigating information. It turns out that soon after Jose and another participant ran away, they found the second victim, who was struggling to get home on his broken ankle.
He was crawling between yards trying to hide when they come across him, and they offer him help, which was kind of odd.
They took the survivor home and helped him clean up. Then they let him call his family. Are you sorry for what happened?
Yeah, and somebody asked me one time if I'd be able to say sorry to the family if they would come to court, and I probably wouldn't, because, I'd feel too ashamed to even, try to talk to them, because I know how they probably feel.
We looked at what was the level of participation in the assault. How criminal was he? How culpable was he? And in Jose's case, his participation in the assault, at least from the evidence that we had and from the statements of the participants in the assault, we saw that his involvement wasn't that high.
As they had with Sean, prosecutors offer Jose a deal, but a different one. Move to adult court and plead guilty, but to the lesser charge of involuntary manslaughter. Maximum sentence, 4 years. But before deciding on a sentence, the adult court judge sent Jose to the California Youth Authority, which houses the state's most violent kids. Jose was sent to undergo a 90-day psychological evaluation.
The Youth Authority is very thorough. A psychologist interviewed him. There was also a report from a master's of social work, and they concluded that if he received what the Youth Authority, their system, could offer, that there was no reason for him to go to the adult system, where much less, if anything, would be offered to him.
Back in adult court, Jose, who once contemplated spending his whole life in prison, gets a very big break. Telling Jose he wants to give him a chance to turn his life around, the adult court judge sentences Jose not to prison, not even to time at the Youth Authority, but to 208 days in the local juvenile hall. Jose was surprised and greatly relieved, but the victim's family and the homicide investigators found the judge's decision troubling.
I think what people should realize is that in these cases, for every kid that maybe might turn around, there were some real victims on the other side of the equation.
We have a victim who's not able to make any type of choices anymore. That victim's gone. He's dead. From the family's perspective, you would want to see that at least they feel that justice is done. I don't know necessarily in this case if they feel that justice was done.
That's what we're going to start doing. Let's go try this one again. From here.
Your Honor, this is petition number 113462 in the matter.
At 14, Manny was convicted in juvenile court of rape. Now, at 17, he is back in court, charged with attempted murder. Prosecutors are demanding that he be tried as an adult. If convicted, Manny could go to prison for more than 20 years.
Department 10 is now in session. The Honorable Doris Spencer presiding. Be seated, please.
Hi, good morning. We're prepared to proceed with this fitness hearing. The burden is on the juvenile to establish that He is fit to remain in the juvenile system as opposed to being tried as an adult. Is the request of the people that he be found unfit and therefore placed in the adult system. All right, we're ready to proceed.
Because of the prosecutor's insistence on moving Manny to adult court, today Manny begins something called a fitness hearing. It is unique to the juvenile system. These hearings do not focus on guilt or innocence. Instead, the question is whether Manny still deserves a chance at rehabilitation in the juvenile system. In the fall of 1999, Manny and 2 other gang members attacked a family in his neighborhood.
I thought I was gonna die. I heard glass flying, and the first thing in my mind were my kids, so I ran out of the washroom. I didn't make it all the way out because someone pulled me by the back of my hair, pulled me by my hairs, and then I seen someone coming towards me.
Maria was pregnant when she and 4 others were beaten and stabbed.
Manny, along with 2 gang members, attack woman who is 6 months pregnant with a baseball bat, hitting her repeatedly in the stomach. They stab other individuals. 4 people are injured in an attack that involved bats and knives. Manny has, as a result, been charged with 4 counts of attempted murder.
Should people be afraid of you?
I shouldn't be scared, you know what I'm saying? It's like, what for? I'm not no Jeffrey Dahmer or nothing like that. You know, I'm just a normal guy like any other guy, except maybe I grew up in a different neighborhood, you know? I live on the east side, San Jose. It's not like a real Beverly Hills type of neighborhood, you know, where you got the security guards rolling the streets, patrolling your neighborhood. It's got a bunch of drunk men, you know what I'm saying? Just going to liquor stores, buying more beer, and just, fed up with themselves because they live in a filthy place, you know? The way I look at it, you're in a gang. You're hated by many, and you're loved by a few, but you're respected by all, you know?
In court, at Manny's fitness hearing, probation officer Bruce Bell is about to take the stand.
The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. In the juvenile system, probation officers like Bell evaluate kids to decide if they can be rehabilitated. Working independently of both the prosecution and the defense, the probation officer prepares a fitness report for the court.
Fitness is based upon 5 criteria. 1, the degree of criminal sophistication of the minor. 2, whether the juvenile court can rehabilitate the minor during the time the juvenile court has jurisdiction over the minor. 3, the minor's previous delinquent history. 4, the success of previous attempts by the juvenile court to rehabilitate the minor. And 5, the circumstances and gravity of the offense that now brings the minor before the juvenile court.
Mr. Bell, isn't it fair to say that the primary issue in relation to each of the 5 criteria is amenability to treatment?
Yes.
Okay. So essentially, in the first 4 criteria, you concluded that he was fit on those 4 criteria. Is that right?
Yes.
But the prosecutor questions whether Manny can be rehabilitated.
With respect to previous delinquent history, how did you reach the conclusion that someone who has been arrested 5 times and has a sustained petition for rape prior to his involvement in the instant case is fit for juvenile court?
Well, when I assessed it, I viewed it as a young man who could go to California Youth Authority as compared to going to state prison and being tried as an adult. There are many kids that are his age and even younger that would go to California Youth Authority based upon these type of delinquent history.
Probation officer Bell believes that the juvenile system has programs that can still help turn Manny around. But Manny has yet to face the crucial question, the gravity of the crime.
Marquise is present in court this afternoon, and this matter is on calendar for fitness hearing.
In Judge Nancy Hoffman's court, Marquise is also starting his fitness hearing. Unlike Sean, Jose, and Manny, Marquise is not charged with a violent crime. But in the slang of the system, 17-year-old Marquise is a frequent flyer. He has 7 felonies on his record, all related to theft.
I have never seen a case where someone has been up through everything that the system has to offer as many times as Marquise, taking it right to the edge 2 months before his 18th birthday. He commits 2 burglaries.
I came home, I knew something was wrong. I noticed immediately that the drawers in both my son's room and in my room had been completely emptied. They took a lot of electronics besides stealing the car and the things that were in the car. They took a lot of jewelry that had been handed down to me from both Bob's family and from my family. More than anything besides losing the things, it's losing that sense of security.
When I think about the chance that Joanne might have pulled in at the time that people were in the house, I can't help but wonder what their reactions would have been, whether they would have run or whether they would have confronted. And I guess you never know the answer to that, do you? But in this case, somebody wasn't hurt. The next time around, somebody might be.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this case should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please have a seat.
The prosecution has called Lori Cooper.
Go ahead. Can you tell us your occupation?
I'm a deputy probation officer for San Mateo County.
Do you get kids on a regular basis who you believe can be rehabilitated?
Yes.
Are most of the kids you handle like that?
I believe everyone is capable of rehabilitating.
Okay. Given that kind of a view, what's your view of this minor and his willingness and possibilities to be rehabilitated?
I believe the services were provided, and despite those services, he continued to break the law.
Do you see him as essentially a career criminal?
Yes.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
When did you start breaking into people's houses?
Summer of '97.
You remember it clearly?
Mm-hmm.
How come?
Because my cousin had came down from Atlanta, and one day it was just like, let's break into a house. And so we broke into a house, and we didn't get much, but now it was like, to me, it was like fun. You know, it was the adrenaline, it was like up there. And so we kept doing it.
Were you looking for anything in particular?
The main thing, we were looking for money, that's it. You know, and whatever came after that came.
How did you figure out whether people were home? Did you go up and ring the doorbell, or?
Yes.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And what if somebody was home? What would be your excuse for standing there?
Be like, we trying to go to Disneyland. Can you help us go to Disneyland if you want to buy a candy bar or something like that?
So did you ever feel bad about this while you were breaking into people's houses?
I felt bad. I felt bad because it's like, I know it wasn't right, but I still did it though. I figured like, if I kept doing it, maybe I would come up big, and then I'll stop doing it, you know?
I'm a mother, and I know what I would want for my son if he did something wrong. On the other hand, I also know what it feels like when something is done over and over and over again, that in fact, he knows it's wrong, and he's going to have to pay the price for it.
Back in juvenile court, Sean and his family are still waiting. After a 2-week break, Judge Edwards comes to a decision.
The court's concerned to assure not only a true rehabilitation of Sean, but to assure the public a measure of peace of mind and security in the future, so that whatever we do now is done effectively. That is, that we don't have to worry about Sean having another homicidal impulse that he carries out in the future against either a member of his own family or some third party. So the court, therefore, will find that the best interests of Sean requires that he be observed and diagnosed in a manner that can only be had at the Diagnostic and Treatment Center of the California Youth Authority, that he be placed there for a period not to exceed 90 days, and that the director of the Youth Authority...
It is a request for still more information. Like Jose, Sean is going to the California Youth Authority for a 90-day evaluation. Only then will the judge make a final ruling. Sean's parents are angry and frightened about what might happen to him at CYA.
He is a non-aggressive kid, and he's not that big a kid. Most of the people that are in that system are bigger. He would be a target. CYA, as far as I can tell, based on their recidivism rate, is nothing more than a training ground for adult criminals.
I'm afraid to go to the California Youth Authority. I mean, I was just in shock. I'm saying I couldn't really believe that this judge had actually sentenced me to the California Youth Authority based on all the evidence. And so I went back into my room, and really the first thing that I started thinking about is, wow, I better start doing a lot of push-ups.
When he was leaving, he was worried about where he was going and how it was going to be and stuff.
Sean asks Jose, who recently returned from CYA, what to expect.
He asked me, like, what's this place like? What are my race going to tell me when I get there? You know, what kind of gangs do my white people have, and what kind of gangs are over there? When he came in, he was a cool guy. You know, he was kind of soft here and there. Now he's like, talks about his slang, and he's more rough on things and more rowdy.
On the trip to CYA, Sean shows off his new jailhouse persona.
We're off to see the Wizard. The Wizard of Oz.
The first case I came up here for was a strong arm robbery. I served like 12 days all time. I got out, and then my second charge, like this time, I was only out for like a month and a half, then I got locked up in an attempted murder charge. And they were gonna do me, and folks, they said they were gonna pile on like an assault and battery with a deadly, personal use of a deadly and dangerous weapon, like conspiracy to commit murder, some shit like that. They were gonna do me in, folks. And then they were gonna take it to adult court too, and I would've lost, because those were some serious ass charges. If I would have got found guilty, I would have been up on the 15 to L spot. I'm like, I'm straight. I plead guilty as hell. I'm guilty as sin. Don't do me like that. I've learned how to walk a certain way and talk a certain way. I've learned how to carry myself offensively. I've learned how to talk like a gangbanger. I mean, my parents always tell me, you know, I'm saying, why do you talk like you're black? And I say, I can't even control it anymore. It's like sometimes you forget who you really were, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's one of the hardest things about being in jail is you kind of lose your own identity.
All right, man, we're at YA. Just keep it down. We'll get through this real quick.
Right now he's getting evaluated, so everything he does, he's under a microscope. They watch him. So there's a lot of different people tend to try to make you fight and trying to encourage you to do things that ain't right. And if he's willing to do it, they'll make him do things that ain't cool.
While Sean is being evaluated at CYA, the daily routines back at Santa Clara County's Juvenile Hall continue.
Okay, gentlemen, listen up. You're going to be getting ready for school. Come out, do your hygiene, take it to set up quietly. You've been very loud lately. You're going to pay consequences for that. Take care of business today. Let's have a good day, gentlemen.
Here in Juvenile Hall, even in the maximum security unit where Jose is serving his sentence, the emphasis is on rehabilitation.
First two hombretos, come on down.
I see my role here as trying to create a sort of a community. It's not for me to judge what they did or what they didn't do. I don't want to get into that. That would cloud the issue.
These are the words that you looked up yesterday. I know you don't know them, but just give a listen. First word is imperiously. Imperiously.
You just want us to listen, man.
I want you to write it down if you can. Next word is mottled. Mottled.
Jose, when he first came into the unit, was always very likable, but he also had a kind of an inferiority complex. And I had to almost convince him that he should complete things because he thought, well, I can't graduate and I can't do this.
I was never out long enough to go to school, but I was getting locked up. First time I came in here, I was 11 years old. And then I came back when I was 12, and 13, and 14, till now.
Game lock. 7.
I think that we pretend that these kids come from normal backgrounds, in quotes, and that's not the case. Jose was sort of a throwaway kid. He was gang affiliated at a young age, and I know he's been homeless for a long period of time. I know that there's been a lot of trouble in the family, so he didn't have much before he came in here.
Jose's one image of childhood is very much like the childhood itself, brief and blurry. His father disappeared soon after he was born. Jose says his mother began drinking when he was a boy, and eventually she disappeared. Left to his own devices, Jose found a different kind of family, a gang.
I was like 12 years old when I got these tattoos. If you have tattoos like this, you're affiliated with the gang. You're either norteños or sureños. And that's what the dots represent. It didn't hurt too bad, not really.
The gang life led to alcohol and drugs. Some 69% of the kids in Santa Clara County's juvenile facilities have a severe substance abuse problem. By the time Jose's father reappeared, his young son was a serious addict.
When I did run into him, that's when I realized that he was, smoking weed, drinking beer, and I mean, I used to see him so low that I used to pick him up. I put him in a shopping cart, push him down the street to get him home. You know what I mean?
He'd be that drunk or high?
Oh, high, yeah. He got into smoking that PCP and all that, nasty stuff.
What's this here? Is that a tattoo?
Yeah.
What is that?
Actually, it used to be an XIV, but I covered it up.
What does that mean?
It's like Northern.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so you were doing that too?
Yeah, I have my background too. I participated in gangs, done my time behind bars. I had my heroin addiction. I've had my alcoholism, and that's why in so many ways I look at my son and it hurts me because looking at him is like looking at myself, because they say out of one of your children is going to come out to be like you.
You know you have a visit at 4:30, right?
4:30?
Yeah.
I hope it comes, man.
Today, Jose's father has scheduled a visit.
If he comes 10 minutes too late, they won't let him in 10 minutes or later, so we talk about it. It's all right if you don't come.
I like this movie, dude.
You know, they didn't call for my visit, Logan? They didn't call for no visit?
No, man.
Yeah, I won't get it. It's too early. I knew it would come.
Man, this is Pops.
Yeah, he's probably working still. Yep. No visit. He ain't coming. Still working.
Five, identify the people that we need to work with. Organizations, schools, creditors, and people who will support me, etc.
Okay, so who's maybe your most important person in a 12-step program? Your sponsor.
Although Marquise is still waiting to find out whether he will be tried as an adult or as a juvenile, because he is now 18, he has been transferred to an adult facility, county jail. When Marquise first arrived, he was placed in the general population. He asked that he be moved. Now he is in a unit offering a substance abuse program, although Marquise does not have a drug problem, but it seemed safer.
It was like, man, I just seen a lot of old people there. I was kind of shocked. So many old people would be there. And it was like, man, I guess they didn't learn neither.
Marquise will stay in the county jail until his fitness hearing in Judge Hoffman's court is over.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. For the record, the matter before the court is item number 7 on this afternoon's primary calendar concerning Marquise.
His public defender, Gilda Valeros, is fighting to keep him in the juvenile system, his record clear of adult charges. Valeros argues that Marquise, who spends court time doing complicated long division problems, has done well in juvenile facilities but fallen apart on the outside. She tries to show the court a reason why by describing the homes where Marquise was sent when he was released. She calls Marquise's former parole officer at the Youth Authority, Bernard Naras.
It was my understanding that the aunt that he lived with may not have been the most appropriate person to provide parental guidance for a 17-year-old.
Marquise's aunt was a young woman in her mid-20s, and she had also served time in the Youth Authority.
What, based on your information, what was the aunt committed to CYA for?
187 PC murder.
When Marquise and his aunt clashed, he was placed next in this East Palo Alto home with his great-grandmother. But that home was also troubled.
Did you ever get the impression that the house in East Palo Alto was like a crack house?
I did.
And it was the best placement you could find for him that he was willing to accept?
That it was home to him.
It may have been a crack house, but for Marquise, it was home because his mother was there.
My drug of choice was heroin, crack cocaine. I used to drink, smoke weed, take pills, and all that.
Gaina is Marquise's mother. He is the oldest of Gaina's 6 children. His father was shot to death when Marquise was 8. Gaina was in and out of jail during Marquise's childhood.
Me and Marquise, I used to take him downtown with me, stealing, show him how to steal. And then that's how he started off, stealing from the stores and stuff.
You taught him how to steal, how to shoplift? Mm-hmm. Because you needed the things, or because you just wanted to sell it, or what were you doing?
When I was stealing from the beginning, I was stealing for me and him. Marquise always had the best of what I felt was the best by me just taking the stuff out of the stores. And then when I got heavily in my addiction, yes, I used to sell the clothes and stuff too.
Did you ever talk to anybody about what was going on with you and your family? Like teachers or anybody?
No.
Why not?
Because I was young and I felt like it was my responsibility to help my family out. And just like, I felt like I couldn't go to them, for anything. It's just like, I just wanted to keep it inside. Maybe, I guess, because I felt probably embarrassed or something.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth?
Gaina is now in a drug treatment and job training program. She has been clean for almost 6 months when she decides to testify about her problems in an effort to explain Marquise's behavior to the court. It will be a familiar story. Over 50% of the kids in the juvenile justice system have family members with a criminal history.
Was Marquise aware that you use these kind of drugs?
Yes, he was aware of it.
You told him, didn't you?
Not really told him. I try to hide it from him, but he can see the difference in me. He's seen the people, the crowds I hung around. He's seen me doing transactions and all that kind of stuff.
You selling dope out of the house?
Yes.
And for how long have you been doing that?
For years.
Sitting through day after day of testimony was almost too much for Marquise.
There was a minor there who barely stands up for himself, barely speaks for himself, and was barely involved, really in kind of listening to his life, get played out in every painful detail. And so it became, very personal.
As Marquise, Manny, Jose, and Sean make their way through the courts, the debate over whether serious juvenile offenders belong in the adult system is intensifying, even as juvenile arrests for violence are falling dramatically around the country. In California, Proposition 21 is on the ballot. If passed, Proposition 21 would give prosecutors far more discretion making it much easier to prosecute violent and serious juvenile offenders as adults. The debate over the ballot measure consumes the Santa Clara County Juvenile Court.
The problem is that we're taking 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, and we're giving up on them. There are a multitude of young people who commit, some of them very serious offenses, okay, that can benefit from treatment in the system and do well. And I know this because they've been in my court and they've proven me right.
But supporters of Proposition 21 say there is a small percentage of truly serious offenders who belong in the adult system.
As prosecutors, we are given a certain trust with respect to public safety. And the hard call sometimes is that given a nature of an offense or given a nature of an offender, public safety and resource allocation requires that this person should no longer be in our system.
In the heat of the political debate over what to do about young offenders, the kids themselves are often reduced to symbols. But here in Juvenile Hall, every kid is still an individual. Charged with attempted murder for a brutal attack on a family, Manny may be tried as an adult. But to the staff, who do not usually probe the details of the kids' crimes, Manny is one more kid they might help.
All right, C and D section, stand by your door.
You guys ready? Yes, sir. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Sir. All right.
We tell them once they enter the door, we have zero tolerance for gangs. If you start any kind of gang fights, any kind of gang retaliation, any gang talk, any gang graffiti, you will never come out of your room. And that was my speech to Manny. Here's the reverse side. If you want to clean yourself up, now is your opportunity. And that very first day he was down, I'll never forget, I was sitting at the desk by myself, and Manny came up to me and he said, "Mr. Parker, I want to get myself together."
Face the wall.
Face the wall!
One. Don't anticipate.
Counselor Parker says he hopes to replace the self-esteem kids like Manny get from gangs with self-worth built on personal achievement. He runs a program, the Manhood Challenge.
Tired, guys?
Sir, no, sir!
You want to quit?
Sir, no, sir!
Mr. Parker used to tell us, you know, if you guys are such men, you know what I mean? You guys are on the streets, you know, shooting people, shanking people, but you come in here, you can't even do a push-up, you know, you can't even run for, 5 minutes.
30 jumping jacks. Lead it off for me, Manny.
30 jumping jacks, hands to your side! Hands to your side! Ready, begin!
It made me feel kind of proud, you know, like to finish it. There would be like people that would just quit, go to their rooms. I didn't want to be a quitter, you know.
One of the reasons Manny wants to improve himself is his son. Manny grew up without his father and now fears he will be missing from his own son's childhood.
I got a chance to be a dad, you know. And I was a dad out there for like 3 months, you know. I felt real good. Had my son, had my family, had my lady. I don't know. But I gave all of it up in a second, you know.
And Manny's very hungry. He's hungry for wisdom. He's hungry for knowledge. But the streets gave it to him in the wrong way. They made him street smart and they made him street wise. I think if Manny had somebody much stronger than him in his life on a continuous basis, then he would have done a lot better than he's doing now.
B8, you have 1 minor returning.
Thank you.
Sean has now returned to Juvenile Hall from CYA. His evaluation there did not go well. In his very first week, Sean got into trouble.
When I first arrived at CYA, I was placed in a room with a child molester. 3 days later is when I got my first day actually outside with general population.
It was then, Sean says, a white gang member approached, flashed a knife, and gave him an ultimatum.
He displayed a knife in plain view, said he got to rape him. I said, why? He's like, that's a child molester, that's what he gets. That's what he deserves. That's how we deal with child molesters up here. This ain't juvenile hall. This is YA, this is state, bro.
That afternoon, a guard on duty was patrolling the hallways. The guard caught Sean forcing his roommate to perform oral sex.
So you forced this kid to copulate you?
Right.
How do you feel about that?
At the time, I mean, I didn't feel that there were any other options around it. You know what I'm saying? I could have snitched out. I'm saying if I got sent back to the Y, then I'd have been a punk, and I'd have been getting raped in the ass, and I'd have been getting stuck and punked for everything that I had. And when you're faced with that kind of situation, you don't react as you would otherwise. You know what I'm saying? It's like when somebody's got a gun out and they're robbing you. You're not thinking, you know what I'm saying, maybe I'll just punch him, you know what I'm saying, and try to get the gun away from him.
You thought it was, what, him or me?
Yeah, that's the choice it comes down to.
We're gonna get through this, okay? We're gonna get through it. I know your parents are panicked. They're panic-stricken, and I understand it.
Sean's lawyer had hoped the evaluation would convince the judge that Sean was not dangerous and did not need to be incarcerated at CYA. Instead, Sean has now pled guilty to a new crime. Sean's chances of staying close to home are in jeopardy.
Sean was sent to the California Youth Authority. In his first week there, he commits a sexual assault. What was your reaction when you heard that?
I was pretty surprised.
Did it change your opinion about what should happen in his case?
No, it didn't. My opinion from day one was basically that Sean needed therapy.
So now you have a kid who has 3 violent acts on his record, including a strong-arm robbery of some 11 and 12-year-old kids, a sexual assault of his roommate, in which he was clearly not sleepwalking. Why isn't this just a dangerous kid?
He's a sick kid. I think in terms of public safety, he's better off getting some therapeutic intervention.
As Sean waits in juvenile hall for his final hearing, Jose, his former cellmate, is leaving. After serving 208 days for involuntary manslaughter, Jose is about to be free.
Your rooms look very sloppy. Really, really sloppy. A lot of you guys are going to start getting disciplined because there's...
I look at it like my last chance. You know, if I mess up, I go to prison. I've already been told one little mistake, I go to prison. And I ain't trying to mess up because this is a big chance that I got.
You're a bright kid. You can get it done. You got a second chance. This is your second chance. Right? All right. Huh?
I ain't as excited as I thought I'd be about getting out. You know, there's a lot of problems out there in the streets and tempting things out there for me. And I know how it's gonna be for me. It's gonna be hard.
At 17, Jose walks out of juvenile hall as a kid, but he will carry an adult record for the rest of his life.
It's far too soon to even predict what's gonna happen tomorrow, you know? But every father's or every parent's wish is hoping for the best.
Good morning. All right, we'll continue with cross-examination. Mr. Bell, if you'll take the stand, you're still under oath.
As Manny's fitness hearing continues, the tide is turning against him as attention turns to the 5th criterion, the gravity of the crime.
The fact that you have an attempted murder, not just against 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 victims, makes this more serious than a single count of attempted murder, correct?
Yes.
Manny's probation officer finds him unfit on the last criterion, the gravity of the crime.
Are you sorry it happened?
Yeah, I'd rather, I'd rather be at home right now, so.
Let me ask you, are you sorry because you're here, or are you sorry because people got hurt?
both.
Are you ready to change?
I want a better life, you know? I think change takes time, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you can't just, I mean, you could, but...
But you're not ready yet?
I'm not sure if it's... I mean, yeah, I want to change, you know? For my son, you know, I want to, like, get out and start roaming the streets and all that again, you know? But if push comes to shove, I ain't gonna turn the other cheek, you know? I mean, I still got my pride. So if someone disrespects me or my son, my family or my mother, then that's when, you know, you gotta take action, you know?
Even if it means getting locked up for a long time.
Yeah, it's like by any means necessary. If you have to, you know.
In court, it is time for final arguments.
Your Honor, this is sort of an unusual case insofar as probation officer, who is an independent evaluator, has come in and testified essentially that Manny is amenable, in his opinion, under criteria 1 through 4. The only criteria that he has deemed to say that Manny is not amenable to treatment is criteria number 5.
But the prosecutor insists that the violence cannot, must not be overlooked.
He is a gang member committing a gang crime in the company of other gang members with weapons. You have the fact that he used a knife in the attack. There was at least one victim that was an extremely vulnerable victim. He is unfit on criteria 5, and it only takes one.
Under California law, since Manny is 17 and charged with a violent felony, if he is found unfit on even one criterion, he must be sent to the adult system.
I cannot refute the facts here. I mean, they are clear that this was a very serious offense, and I haven't heard of, or there's no evidence of any circumstances that would tend to mitigate the gravity of the offense. It was clearly, under any kind of reading, a vicious attack. So therefore, I am compelled to find that he has failed to overall rebut the presumption of unfitness, and therefore must now move forward to the adult system. Thank you.
So Manny begins to say goodbye to his childhood. He is transferred to the adult jail to be processed into the system.
The only thing I want you to do is be cool, chill out, don't say anything.
That night, Counselor Parker finds out, for the first time, the full story behind Manny's arrest.
I actually couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe he did what he did. The young man that I knew didn't seem like he was capable of doing such a crime.
And you're gonna come back, Manuel.
Spread your feet apart.
I believe Manny was in a state of shock. Manny was fearful of what reality is and what the future is going to be. And I think all of a sudden Manny realized what happened and that now he has to pay for what he did. It did bother me. I wish it could have been a different way.
Mother, in addition,
in Santa Clara County's juvenile court, Marquise's case has become the longest-running fitness hearing in memory. Finally, it is time for closing arguments. Unlike Manny, since Marquise is charged with a non-violent offense, Judge Hoffman cannot find him unfit on just one criterion. She can only send him to adult court if she finds him unfit overall, weighing all the criteria.
All right, I understand you're both ready to proceed on your arguments. Mr. Garner, did you wish to present your opening to the closing argument?
This is what I would call an extreme case of a history that is so long and so constant as to almost be mind-boggling. There's been nothing at all so far that has shown that he has any genuine desire to try to stop committing crime for a living. It's simply what he does, unfortunately. And because of that, he is not amenable to the juvenile system.
Your Honor, it is not enough that we examine that there is an extensive delinquent history. That's something that we can't deny. But the inquiry actually goes much further as to what does that delinquent history demonstrate as far as whether the juvenile courts can still provide resources to significantly reduce the subject's criminal conduct. Submitted.
Though I may not give the smoothest finding that I could if I took a recess, I'm going to go ahead at this time because I'm looking over at Marquise. I've seen him with his head down all afternoon, and I'm thinking of the stress that he and his mother have gone through in coming to all of these hearings. So the first criteria, of course, that I considered was the degree of criminal sophistication exhibited by the minor. I found aggravating circumstances in that regard to be the fact that he planned the burglaries. There was planning involved. So I found him to be unfit under the first criteria. Now, the second criteria then was whether he can be rehabilitated prior to the expiration of juvenile court jurisdiction. I found him to be fit. On criteria number 3, which is his previous delinquent history, he does have 8 sustained felonies, not including the current Santa Clara County burglary. However, in mitigation, he had a horrendous childhood. And that word horrendous really describes it very accurately, with little or no guidance. So under this criteria of prior delinquent history, I find him to be fit. On number 4, success of previous attempts by the juvenile court to rehabilitate it. I find him unfit under this category.
Having ruled against Marquise on 2 and for him on 2, the judge rules on the last criterion and makes her final decision.
Circumstances and gravity of the offense is the 5th category. Under that category, I find him fit. Therefore, I find Marquise amenable to treatment for retention in the juvenile court based on the criteria the court is required to consider.
Marquise's stay in adult jail is over. He will be returned to the California Youth Authority.
I got a 9 o'clock appointment. Jose.
As Marquise and Manny learn their fates, Jose is confronting the difficult reality of life on the outside, where he must still face the consequences of his past.
What's up? How you doing?
Pretty good.
So what's going on? You bring my stuff for me?
Yep.
Your dad not here?
No.
He is required to meet regularly with his probation officer, Angel Mina. He must submit to random drug tests. He cannot associate with gang members, and he must either go to school or get a job.
All right. So you just need to, have you look for a job? Because you're not doing anything. I mean, you're home all day, right? What do you do all day?
I go to the library. I was working for a little bit with my dad.
Yeah, but I mean, a job where you're gonna get your own paycheck. You need to get
Yeah, I know. Well, I put in a lot of applications.
Have you called back anybody?
Nobody called me back. No, I called a couple.
them back.
Yeah, I did. But they just say, well, we'll see, we'll call you or whatever.
You keep calling them back. They'll get tired of hearing from you because you can't be sitting on your butt. You just got to be persistent.
Everywhere I go, even to like a supermarket or something, everybody asks, have you been convicted of a felony? If yes, like why, when, what happened, So I put it down and, but of course, I haven't got no phone calls yet, but I'll keep trying. And,
you can see their point. You can see why people might be frightened.
But I think they should at least, you know, give me a chance, come talk to me, interview me or something, you know, see what I really am like, you know.
I know he's already gone to a temporary agency, and it looked good until, yeah, they came to the part where he had a felony conviction. So, I mean, that's something he's going to have to make a decision about, and we've told him, yes, you do have to tell him you have a felony conviction, but there's, you know, obviously other ways to do it. It's not the correct way to do it in this case. So it's really hard. It's really a hard decision for him to make. Do I tell the truth up front and take the risk of them not hiring me, or do I just lie, and when they find out, hopefully they'll like me enough they'll keep me around?
Isn't that kind of a dirty trick, though, for any kid, not just Jose coming out of the system who wants to make a change?
It's hard. It's hard. Same thing for, you know, adult parolees. I mean, it's difficult, but there are people who do find work. It's not impossible, but it's real hard. As a probation officer, I'm going to try and help you the best I can. I'm not your parent. You know, I can't be your parent. I'm going to do what I can do, but ultimately, it's unfortunate, and it might sound kind of hard, but yeah, you're going to have to do for yourself.
It has now been more than 15 months since Sean attacked his father. Judge Edwards is finally ready to make a disposition to sentence Sean for the attempted murder. But in addition, Sean must now contend with the sexual offense.
Well, we're back on the record again. Since we last met, we have 2 new reports, plus the diagnostic study that was submitted by the California Youth Authority pursuant to court.
I had Stan Faddis, my probation officer. I had my parents all telling me that you're going to CYA. Based on what happened, based on this report is so terrible. It makes you look like a savage.
All right. Sean, what would you like to say?
Your Honor, 2 days after I arrived in the Youth Authority, I was faced with a choice not too uncommon in prison, and that's to hurt or to be hurt. This ultimatum was presented to me by a white gang wielding a jailhouse shank, which are not altogether uncommon in the Youth Authority either. I was afraid for my life, Your Honor, and that is why I did what I did. Not because I'm a predator, not because I'm sexually confused, because I didn't want to die. Your Honor, if I was sent to Sacramento to scare me straight, then this court has undoubtedly accomplished its goal. But if I was sent with an evaluation in mind, then that evaluation was undoubtedly flawed. A person's true character cannot be judged if that character must be changed in order to survive. A true test of my character would be my continued behavior here over a much longer period of time in a safe and secure environment. Please keep me close to my family and just keep me safe. For my sake and for that of my family, please, Your Honor, just help me.
Thank you, Sean.
It's really chilling to listen to him explain that somehow this was justifiable behavior. He seems to feel justified in acting out violently on his impulses whenever he deems that to be appropriate. And that really is the definition of a sociopath. And I think the young man has become a sociopath. And I think that he needs to be kept someplace where he is not going to be a danger to the general public. Submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders. I did have an opportunity over the weekend to take a look at my trial notes and these very...
First, Judge Edwards addresses the sexual offense, and he finds Sean's explanation that he did it to keep from being a victim himself credible.
As far as the 288 goes, at the diagnostic center, I think it was obviously disgusting, but I believe it was situational. So I think that Sean's view of that probably is more accurate.
Then he addresses the attack on Sean's father.
It's painfully apparent to the court that Sean's knife attack on his father arose out of an interpersonal dynamic of extreme family dysfunction. It was an expression of Sean's growing rage, and it may be drug-related. It may be related to a clinical sleep disorder. I don't know. The experts disagreed on that. In any event, since the problem in Sean's case originates and lies in the family relationships, the solution must also begin there. In my view, after considering all of the different alternatives that are before the court, the best place for Sean, as a unique person, to begin that process is here in Santa Clara County, in the juvenile hall. Until he turns 19, YA will always be there if this doesn't work, or if he exhibits antisocial behavior or predatory behavior, so the community can be assured that it will be safe while we're trying to fix this young man and get this family back together in a healthy fashion. Why don't we take a short recess, dry our eyes, and then we'll come back on the record, and I'll make my findings and orders accordingly.
Barbara, you don't cry when you're successful.
Yes, you do.
At the end, I think everyone in that courtroom was ready to fall out of their chairs. And I think that it was a tremendous injustice that was done in this case, not just the fact that we didn't treat this individual the way that he should have been treated, in my opinion, but that we have created the perception in the community that certain people are going to be treated differently in the system because of where they come from.
Even Sean's attorney is surprised by the decision.
Sean got a break. I mean, that's the bottom line. He got a break because we have a lot of sick kids and they aren't treated the same way he is.
Is that fair?
No, it isn't. The system is not fair. Institutional racism is alive and well in the juvenile justice system.
Judicial ethics prevent Judge Edwards from speaking about the specifics of Sean's case, but he did respond to general questions about the equity of the juvenile justice system.
Many of the kids we've interviewed believe that white middle-class kids get a break, that they are more likely to be kept at home, they are less likely to get the stiff sentences, they're more likely to be given opportunities to continue their education. Do you think that's true?
Well, all the studies and statistics say it is true. There is a disproportionate minority population in our custody facilities, and there shouldn't be.
Why is that fair, that the system seems to be so inclined to, tolerate these disparities?
Well, it all depends on what perspective you're giving it. Probably most judges want to be defensive about it and argue with you, would say pretty much something like this. They would say, kids who come from inner cities are more likely to come from a minority group in our culture. They also come from areas that don't have strong neighborhood resources. Their parents do not have enough money to provide the type of supervision that a kid from, say, an affluent white neighborhood would. So why should the system then put these kids in custody, the white affluent kids, when the parents can do as good or a better job spending their own money doing it?
In addition to allowing Sean to serve his time in Santa Clara County's juvenile hall, Judge Edwards gives him permission to leave during the day for counseling sessions, Narcotics Anonymous meetings, and classes at the community college, all fees paid by his parents.
I'll always wonder, is this young man going to reoffend? All I know for certain is that he did try and kill his father. And what's most chilling about the case is that we don't know for sure why.
I'm not saying unequivocally that parasomnia is what happened. I'm not going to say there was a drug, I really don't know. I'm saying an equal belief to me is that, God made me do something just completely terrible in order to take me away from that situation. God works in mysterious ways to get you away from things that you shouldn't be doing. And if it takes something so serious, then so be it.
At the California Youth Authority, Marquise is in a program that emphasizes job training. He is currently on a landscaping crew. He comes up for parole in the fall.
Originally, I really felt that he should be tried as an adult. I just wanted him to be responsible. I'm not sure that would have been the right answer, and that perhaps this is the right answer. What I feel most bad about for him is that why didn't our system take him out of the environment completely when he was young, to give him a different kind of a life.
So you think the system let him down?
Our society let him down.
Would you be optimistic for you?
No.
Really? Why?
I don't know.
Marquise struggles to believe in his own future. Public Defender Valeros struggles too.
He is so attached to his family. He loves his family dearly. Unfortunately, it affects him very deeply when his mother can't maintain her sobriety, and I think he absorbs her failure as his failure and really, kind of like, what's the point of trying? Things are just going to stay the same.
Some people might think you're going to have to cut your moms loose a little bit. Do you think that might be the case?
Nah, I can't never do that, because that's my mom, and it's like, whatever people say, that's just their opinion, because I can never do that, though.
Marquise just loves you. I mean, he is so protective of you. It's really sweet, but it's also heartbreaking in a way. I sometimes wonder whether his loyalty to you keeps him from making better decisions for himself. Do you ever feel that way?
Yes, I know exactly where you come from, because that's how I used to feel about my father. He was doing what I was doing towards Marquise, like selling drugs, using drugs, but my daddy was my daddy, and I looked at him like my God. He was my everything, you know what I'm saying? But now that I'm here to break the cycle, I know that's wrong. I would never do that to none of my children no more.
So you really think you're the defining factor here in his life? If you get your stuff together, then he'll be straight?
No, I don't want to say it like that. I know he got to make his decision on his own, but I believe that once I go on the right path, he will follow behind me.
Which made it even sadder this summer when Marquise's mother, Gaina, was asked to leave her rehab program. She was sent to Valley State Prison for Women for 3 months. When we last visited Marquise, he wanted to know why his mother had not written. No one had yet told him what had happened to her. Last summer, Manny pleaded guilty to 7 counts of assault with a deadly weapon. Last week, he was sentenced to 9 years in state prison. He now has 2 adult felony convictions, or strikes. If he commits another felony, he could be sentenced to life in prison under California's 3 strikes law.
Might as well be a done deal. 2 strikes. I'm only 18 years old. I plan to live till I'm like 50 or something. I ain't perfect, so I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna make it, I don't think I'm gonna stay out for good forever.
What helps kids?
Attention being paid. If the young person comes in and knows that people in the system care, that works. And these kids ought to have an opportunity to be a part of that system, so we save them so they become productive. That's how society benefits. If not, fine. Let's go spend a ton of money every year and let's just lock these kids up. They're going to get out one day, and what do you think? They're going to be back here in our faces again, and we're going to be spending more money than ever.
There is a rehabilitative effect in incarceration. Now, is there a risk that you are taking by putting these people in state prison? Well, absolutely there is, and that is obviously a risk that you have to consider. But if a person has shown, either by their current offense or their history of repeated offenses, the fact that they are a threat to public safety, you know that for the period of time in which they are locked up, the public is safe from their acts.
Do an adult crime, serve adult time, is increasingly the law of the land. This past March, the voters of California followed the national trend and passed Proposition 21, their Get Tough on Juvenile Crime bill. Under Prop 21, Manny and Jose would have gone directly to the adult system. And in Marquise's case, a finding of unfitness on just one criterion, rather than the majority, would have sent him to adult court, a fate previously reserved for violent offenders. Critics of Proposition 21 say it is chipping away at the heart of juvenile justice, rehabilitation.
We have completely eliminated individualizing the system, looking at this particular person to determine whether or not this person ought to go on to be treated as an adult or not. It is absolutely now gone out of the system in certain kinds of cases for children as young as 14 years.
Why does any kid belong in adult court?
The juvenile justice system, when it comes down to it, is a question of resource availability. We are a system, because we are financed by the taxpayers, of limited resources. To optimize those services for the kids that can benefit the greatest amount from them, you have to make the hard call sometime as to whether or not the high-end offenders are the just recipients of the resources that the juvenile justice system has available to it.
Your Honor, this is item number 15 on the primary calendar, petition J118.
As for Sean, he got into trouble again for using illegal drugs while serving his sentence in juvenile hall. When he thought that his probation officer knew and had proof, Sean took off. When he was arrested 4 hours away in another town, he was high and belligerent. Officers used force to restrain him.
Okay. Do you understand the nature of all of those charges? And are those charges true?
Yeah.
Okay. Is the matter submitted, counsel? The court finds that the subject has in fact violated his previous court orders as alleged in the November VOP petition. Okay.
Judge Edwards will sentence Sean, now 18, for the probation violation next month.
Housekeeping before we recess. Mr.
And then there is Jose, the youngest of the group, the one who was charged with the most serious crime. After 5 months of rejections, Jose finally got a job with a local parks department.
I think that I've changed a lot because I understand what life's about, and I know what is gonna lead me to if I don't change. And some people, they know, like we all know, but some just don't care. Some don't care about what they want to do or what they're gonna be. But I care about myself, you know.
Deep inside, you know, like I told him, I'm glad they got you, and I'm glad that they rescued you, because, you know, if they wouldn't have arrested you, you wouldn't have been rescued.
Jose is a symbol of the possibilities, but his is a success story built on a tenuous foundation. He got the job only after a nurse at the juvenile hall put in a good word with a friend. College only became possible when the staff at the hall donated books and a bike so he could get to class. And Mr. Mangelli, his former teacher, calls often to offer encouragement.
I think the lesson of Jose is that he is what some of these kids might have been if given a chance. He's made it, and I think he's going to make it because people cared. And I think that he's going to be a good citizen, and I think that's what society is all about. He's our kid. You know, he really is our kid.
This report continues on our website, which offers profiles of the young men featured in the program, with assessments about each by judges, caseworkers, family, and lawyers, facts on juvenile crime, and success rates in rehabilitating juveniles. A history of how U.S. attitudes have changed over the decades on how to deal with young criminals. Then join the discussion, see what others thought about the program, and add your own comments at pbs.org. Or you can send us an email at frontline@pbs.org. Or write to Dear Frontline, 125 Western Avenue, Boston, Massachusetts, 02134.